So, Luca Guadagnino, the director behind Call Me By Your Name, Bones and All, and Challengers, has a new movie out called After the Hunt. It stars Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, and Ayo Edebiri, and reactions are not great. People are calling it muddled and pretentious and even toothless, despite its provocative tagline of "not everything is supposed to make you comfortable." And so I think I must be missing something because I actually kind of liked it. And maybe that says something about me, maybe it says something about the movie, but either way, I kind of just want to talk about it and get my thoughts out and figure out where I went wrong. Because I feel like this movie is a lot more intentional than what people are giving it credit for. So let's talk it out. The biggest takeaway I got from this film was that everyone in this movie would rather be right than be human. And honestly, I enjoyed that. Not because it makes them likable, but because the movie finds a way to weaponize it in a way that seems so obvious to the viewer, but just blind to the characters. Julia Roberts undeniably crushes it as Alma, who is a philosophy professor who just has a thing for, control and admiration, yet her energy screams insecure and I bow down to the patriarchy. She also adamantly denies having any sort of physical relationship with her colleague Hank, played by Andrew Garfield, which is fooling absolutely nobody. And everything from the way that she dresses to the aesthetic of her home just really wants you to understand that she is a wealthy professor at an Ivy League school and she means business. So when Maggie, her star pupil, played by, once again, Ayo Edebiri, accuses Hank of assault, her image of perfection and structure really starts to fall apart. Alma's instinct to stay natural, and to handle it professionally and think of the consequences is not really as professional as she thinks it is. It's more about preservation. She really doesn't want to be seen as biased, but she really doesn't want to be seen as wrong. And I feel like these people live and work in the language of ethics. They publish these papers and they have these debates and they build these reputations about knowing what is right, philosophically and, morally. But the second those morals stop being theory, they panic and they bend and twist and intellectualize their way out of being accountable. And, Alma specifically abuses her power. She projects her past onto Maggie and she manages to convince herself that she's in the right the whole time. Meanwhile, Hank is over here, brutally eating his chicken wings, hiding behind his reputation as a flirt, but he's too self-aware to be innocent and he's too fragile to face the reality of what that means. And he keeps insisting that he's not the man that would do something like that, despite everything pointing to him 100% being a man who'd do something like that. Yet the certainty of his innocence mixed with the toxic dynamic between him and Alma, I think is intentionally trying to confuse and force the audience to suffer through all these mind games that, these people are playing with each other. But what really ties it all together is Maggie. Maggie complicates everything. So she comes up, she says she was assaulted, the movie never shows us what happened, and then the movie goes out of its way to make her as unsympathetic as possible. She's wealthy, she's obsessive, she's incredibly awkward, and from the perspective of, the older people in this film, she's a bit overly virtuous. And then she starts dressing like Alma, borrowing her mannerisms and her tone in this weird performance of credibility. And that kind of leads into me thinking that this film feels less like a Me Too commentary and more of just a perspective on generational divide that uses this Me Too moment as an ignition point. The older generation argues that there is a method to the control, and I feel like the younger ones are arguing to expose it. And I feel like they're both obsessed with being right, but to define that rightness in completely different ways. And the movie definitely is not taking sides, or at least it's bouncing between both sides in a way that I have seen upsetting people. But to me, the point is that it's taking something that is so simple and making it seem extremely complicated because at the end of the day, these people can't stop putting themselves first. I've also seen people complain that the dialogue is a bit overwritten, and I feel like that is a lot more intentional than they're giving it credit for. The movie is trying to showcase how these people take emotion and then twist it and leverage it for an argument. I do understand how that's frustrating, but I feel like it fits the situation. I think what works for me is that the people in this film are quite literally posturing. These people think that they are so smart and they know all this like textbook stuff about philosophy and morality, that they themselves are like these definitive complex beings when they really aren't. And once that sort of clicked for me, I was kind of able to settle into the chaos of these people digging themselves into deeper and deeper holes. These are people who have mistaken intellect for morality for so long that they can't really tell the difference anymore. And what I liked about After the Hunt is that it refuses to give you answers. It just shows you how dangerous it is to think that you have it all figured out. And it doesn't really ask you to take sides. It asks if you can hold like multiple truths at once, that someone can be both a victim and manipulative, and that someone can be both brilliant and awful, both right and wrong. And as lame as it sounds, I think it was the goal of the movie to kind of stir up a conversation, which for me, it did at least. And so if you've seen After the Hunt, let me know what you thought down below. Tell me I'm stupid. While you're down there, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next movie. Peace.